Good morning, everyone, and thank you all so much for joining us today. So it's official, OnBase 18 is here. We've been looking forward to this opportunity where we can highlight some of the new features and functionality in OnBase 18 that can benefit your organizations and your business processes. All right, so again, welcome. Today's webinar is from the Navient Customer Care Group. Here's a snapshot of the team's composition. Presenting today is myself, Paul Kegler, and the CCG's newest up-and-coming star, Chuck Hamby.
Hello.
A couple of admin notes here before we get started. So as usual, the audience voice is muted. And the screen questions box is available to type any comments or questions that may come up. And at the end, we'll have a survey that will go out. And of course, any previous webinars can all be viewed at navient.com/resources/video. So for today's agenda, we're going to cover the new functionality, image forms, test system creation, combined viewer, and some enhanced functionality within the applicable clients, reporting dashboards, OnBase Mobile, and some updated compatibility as well. And then lastly, we're going to cover some security updates, some security updates, and then a little bit about OnBase updates as well. All right, so let's jump right in here with the new functionality that OnBase 18 has to offer.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Chuck Hamby, and I figured we'd lead with what I find to be the most exciting aspect of OnBase 18, and that's the introduction of image forms. Image forms replicate paper forms electronically, giving you the ability to supplement or even completely replace the structured forms that your organization is currently leveraging today. Built and configured on the same platform as Unity Forms, image forms are easy to configure and share popular features like custom actions, signatures, and calculated fields. The form can be filled out in a supported client or browser and routed through workflow. Image forms can dramatically reduce the time it takes to fill out, process, and submit forms. The biggest takeaway with image forms is they retain the exact look of regulated forms by mapping data fields to an individual image of the form itself. It is sometimes difficult to recreate these forms electronically due to the complexity of the printed form structure. Now these forms can retain their original structure while still collecting the data electronically. The end result is a more convenient experience and the elimination of paper from the process. Most of you have already established forms, or you have government regulated forms that you must incorporate into your business processes. Now with image forms, you can take that same form, leverage the Unity client, add fillable fields, integrate them with autofill keyword sets, keyword data sets, and OnBase workflow to populate fields with existing data, minimizing the rekeying of values. Image forms also leverage a lot of the same functionality of Unity forms, so you can also incorporate logic and custom actions on these forms. And just like Unity forms, you can publish an image form to make it publicly available, allowing your customers, vendors, or constituents the ability to access these regulated forms, fill out the appropriate data, and submit directly to your OnBase solution, where they can automatically kick off any workflow processes you may have going. The OnBase Form Suite consists of a programmable HTML option, eForms, a configurable option, Unity Forms, and now image forms, an option that supports the need to replicate paper forms, but also provides the ease of use and configuration that we all know and love from Unity Forms. Image forms are configured within the Forms Designer on the Unity client. The Forms Designer is what was once known as the Unity Forms Designer. Both are now encompassed within this tool, now known as, again, the Forms Designer. To start, you can either scan a paper version of the form or import an electronic version of the form into your OnBase solution. Then click the form fields and configure them within that designer. The same easy-to-use drag and drop functionality exists to configure those fields. Once the form is fully configured, the form is published for your OnBase users to start leveraging within their OnBase clients. Or, just like Unity forms, they can be shared for users outside of your solution to have access to them through a browser. Now let's take a look at creating an image form template. Open the Unity client and go to the home page. Now we're going to show you how to configure an image form. If you're familiar with Unity Forms Designer, you may be familiar with navigating there. You can always get there from the File menu, Administration, Forms Designer. If you had configured Unity Forms prior to OnBase 18, this was called the Unity Forms Designer. It was renamed in OnBase 18 with the introduction of image forms in order to accommodate the multiple types of forms that can now be designed on that same platform. However, before we jump there, I just want to point out that if you're frequently using the Forms Designer, you can still add it to your favorites so that you can navigate there easily. Again, File, Administration, Forms Designer. So once in the Forms Designer, we're able to either create a brand new form, open a form that's previously made, or adjust our themes. We're going to choose Create so that you can see the screen, although we're ultimately going to jump into a form that we've already configured. I wanted to show you how to set one up from scratch though. Now as you can see here, we can create those Unity forms and image forms on the same platform. The Unity forms have options to create a normal Unity form document or a workflow document as well. For image forms though, we don't have that particular drop down because image forms are always image forms. We can filter by document type. I'll choose the healthcare option here. And you can see the document types that I have configured, and we'll choose the most form. And as that comes into the designer, after we give it a name, we click OK. You can actually see here that we're starting from scratch. Because we've chosen our document type, all the associated keywords have come in, and I have all of my properties. And I don't have anything on this form yet. And as you can see, here's all my keywords. And we need to bring an image in order to actually start using this form. So we do that by coming over here, and we can click the edit pen, and then we'll go over here, and as you can see, we've already brought in this most form. Here's the form we're going to be configuring, and now we can actually select it here, but as you can see, there is another option to import. We've pre-saved this form for the sake of time. Notice these background images are of the system bitmaps document type. That's how we're able to find them, and they are in the PNG file type. If we do need to import the image still, we could import it right up here using the import button. We'll click on that. I'll just show you that screen. And as it opens, you can see that it defaults to the correct document type and file type. And we can put in our form description down here towards the bottom, and we browse right out to it, and we can grab our file. We choose our image and click Select to add the page. And since this is a two-page document, we'll click Add Page, and we'll follow the exact same process here in just a second. We'll get over here. There we go. And follow that same process. Click the Edit pen, choose our document, and click Select. Now, since we've added two pages, you can see the thumbnail view here. We do have the two different pages, and you can select either page by clicking on the page you would like. Now, once we start to work on the form, I like to keep the Custom Actions pane open as we create all of the fields. Those will be listed over here on the right in this Custom Actions pane. So let's move over to our configured form just to speed things up. This is pre-configured except for a few items which we're going to configure right now, but it should look familiar to you. Just a second to get this opened up here. As it opens, again, it looks very familiar. It's what we were just working in. We just have some of the boxes already pre-configured to speed it up. When I open the Custom Actions pane, you'll see some of the custom actions have been configured. And here's those thumbnails so we can navigate between the two pages. Now let's talk about our toolbox. It has all of the controls you would find appropriate to creating an image form. Many of them are familiar from Unity forms. text boxes, multi-line text boxes, check boxes. These are used all over the forms. Select lists. These are for our data sets, our signatures, calculated fields for any fields that would have a calculation on them. Mostly used in math. We don't have any on this form though. We also have a condition button that'll allow us, and we have our lookup button, which I actually already have on this form over here. It's configured for my autofill and the submit button. Now the submit button is very important to have. Without the submit button, you can't publish or test drive the form. And that's located at the very last page of the document, as it should be. Now, as we scroll down the list over here, we will see the fields that are already configured. And once they're configured and placed on the form, you get a warning like you see at the top that they can only be added to the form once. Here's a best practice that we're going to recommend. If you have a lot of fields on the form, you should name them in a way that makes sense. Here we have named our checkboxes by changing the IDs. To name our checkboxes, we use the letters CHK in front of the rest of the ID to quickly identify all of our checkboxes. Just make sure that the ID makes sense to your business process. These checkboxes over here are for selecting whether or not the patient wants CPR. So here's the yes, there's the no. And we've named those as check CPR yes and check CPR no. So when we set up our custom actions, we are copying values to or from workflow. We can find what we're looking for. It makes a lot of sense from just about any perspective for all of these fields. Next, we'll check out how to configure the actual data entry for an image form. So to start out, we'll begin with our legal last name box at the top of the form, and we'll just drag and drop the keyword onto the form. Just grab it here, drop it over there. Text box is a little small, and there's a few different ways that we can configure the size of them. We can go into our properties over here on the left, scroll down, and we can just adjust the size right here by clicking up and down. Or we can adjust the width by dragging it just like this. Or we can use the arrow keys if we just need to do some fine tuning, some fine adjustments to get it right where we want it. This is especially helpful if you have a lot of forms that are, a lot of fields that are really, really close together. I want to point out the font size options over here as well. Now the font size, you can actually choose what you want for how big you want the font to be, or what I'm actually going to choose is this inherit box. This is going to inherit the font size of the form and allow it to be auto-adjustable. It makes it to where I don't have to think about it and play with the settings to get it exactly right for a very large name. Now the legal last name is a keyword that's on this form, and we want to change the ID to be meaningful if we need to. Otherwise we can leave it alone and make sure that it just matches the keyword. Here are the options we have for the control types, so checkboxes, and present on the form is a text box. A select list would be an option if we were using a data set, or that multi-line text box. Something I do want to do on this field is I want to configure an autofill. I want the last name of the autofill to autofill my patient info from a keyword set. So when I go fill out that form, I can just type in the patient's last name and everything else will fill in. Now configure the lookup button for that autofill. So if the user wants to look up info of some kind by an alternate value, like their date of birth or their first name or middle name, I think many of us have experienced this. You go to the doctor and they ask for your last name and date of birth just to find you in their medical records. We'll configure ours to use the first name, the middle name, or the date of birth. And we do this by selecting the keyword set, and then we can click on continue here, and then we can choose which of these checkboxes we want to fill in. Once we're done, verify here really quick. Yep, first name, middle name, and date of birth, and we'll click finish. Now to configure a checkbox. Since we've got all of our things set up, we're ready to start configuring our individual smaller items. So we're going to start with the checkbox and a signature block. Alright, here's the checkbox. So checkboxes are really common on these forms. Most checkboxes have been pre-configured because we don't have the time to do 500 of these on the form. So we'll just click on this. We can drag and drop it right over top of the patient here. We can resize it by dragging and dropping again. We want to make it the exact size of the checkbox on the form. We make those adjustments like that. And I want to format the ID to match the rest of the fields that are checkboxes. So we used CHK, I believe. So we'll change that to CHK. What is that? Patient, discussed patient as my ID. So let me type that in. I also have some pre-configured forms, some pre-configured signature blocks. Sorry about that. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to configure the signature on the next page. So let me get over to there. There's the signature block. So we'll configure this, and as you can see, we have multiple signatures that happen on this form. An option is to configure the signed fields, so I can choose the physician that would sign off on those fields that are relevant to them. Obviously, we would change that for the patient to be there for their legal decision or their legal decision maker to sign off on all the information about the patient. Say, yeah, that information is correct. So in this area, we could choose the form that the keywords that we want to actually use to trigger our lookup. We can just click finish here. Computer's being a little bit slow. So these checkboxes are what determines whether or not a signature is valid on the form. You'll see that there's a workflow rule that evaluates whether it's valid or not. It would be invalidated if somebody had changed that information we tied a signature block. So looking at page 2, we have much of the same information at the top as well. Here we have a review where we're going to put a signature field on the form. I can make the adjustments that I need to make this particular field fit. Get this size down. Just drag this up. Didn't want to go. Give me just a second. I'll get that back up here. And there we go. So here we have that review that we're going to put a signature field on the block. And this is that signed fields box again. So here I do want to configure the checkboxes to review outcome, and I have those checkboxes. So we'll select the people that we want, the checkboxes we want to say that we've signed these fields or not, which are right here. So for no change 1 and for new form 1. And they can sign off, they reviewed, and whether or not they do not want those, whether they do or do not check those boxes. So last we're going to configure a custom action. This is where we start to get into our workflow things. Something that we might want to do is create a custom action because we want to copy all the information from the first page onto the second page. This will make it easier on your end users as they won't have to rewrite all the information from form to form. It will also help reduce errors in data entry as there is only one place users will have to change that information for the entire document. We have our custom actions open. We choose new. Condition type is going to be if field is not empty. We'll type in the name of this custom action. Select that. And field is not empty. We'll select our field and we'll change this to last name. There we go. And it's just going to be the patient legal last name and click OK. Now we've got our actions button. We have to add one of those. Wouldn't be a custom action without selecting that. So we're going to select this set field value, and we'll choose again here the field, and this is where it is on the document, which field it is. This is why it's so important to change that naming structure. Select that, and we're going to tie that over here to the last name field, and we'll click OK. So those are all the changes we need to make to this form. So let's see how it looks in Test Drive. Now this feature has not changed since Unity Forms, and most form designers love it as it always allows you to check the types and values of data prior to publishing the form for use by the end users. The form will behave like a live form in OnBase, so we can use that data as it exists in OnBase, but it's not going to save any data to OnBase. This means we can use our autofill reverse lookup, and we can enter the name of the patient, and then we can do the reverse autofill. So here's the name of the patient. She's Jane. We'll look her up. Oh, look, she's Jane Catherine Smith. This means we can enter the information that we want, select our check boxes down here through the rest of the form. Do we put this stuff in? Yeah, she is a female. And there's our check boxes. She does want CPR, or no, she doesn't. Either way. And we'll configure through there. So there's actually been a custom action that's been applied to the yes and no checkboxes here in order to make sure that you only select one. So this is how we can have a checkbox, which is something like what would appear on a paper form, behave like something like a radio button, which would exist on an electronic form. Using custom actions, we make sure that they only check one, because you certainly cannot check that you both want CPR and do not want CPR. So as we scroll down here to the bottom, this is a checkbox we added. We'll sign that, and then we'll try to sign the document here. Now, whenever we go to sign the document, we can use a signature pad, we can use a mouse, we can use a touch screen. We'll just use the mouse here. I don't have a signature pad. Now, we've also used some logic on the form in order to automatically add the date that we were signing it. You can see that populate right over here. Then as you see here, that custom action that we just added has copied Jane Smith's last name to the document from the first page over to the second page. That's something we're probably going to want to do with all of the fields that repeat on the second page. So there's that, and we'll scoot down to the second page. There's those forms again. We'll probably want to tie those over to the rest of the forms from the first page. And here we can click for a reviewer signature. We'll double click in there and we'll sign it. We'll apply the signature, give it a checkbox, whichever way we want it here, and we'll click submit. Now when we submit, you can now see the form data that was submitted. So this is all the form data that was filled in, and this has come through, and we have successfully created a form that doesn't have any errors when we hit the submit button. So some options here if you're not familiar with Test Drive, and these are all available in Unity forms as well. These help with custom actions for whether or not the form is new or not new, as well as we can select down here to display the image right below. There we go. And this will actually make it look like the document has been burned together. And this is how it's going to look when it's saved as an image. You can also choose how different user groups will see this form. Just like in Unity, where you're used to that before, you can impersonate somebody. And then you also have your scan queues. Here's our manager. We can impersonate the manager or any of our other user groups. And we can also impersonate our scan queues or any other workflow that these custom actions might take place in. So this is image forms in a nutshell. I hope you enjoyed this quick rundown of this new ability of OnBase 18. Turn it over to Paul.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you, Chuck. All right, so also new in OnBase 18 is the test system creation utility. So it is now easier to develop and manage OnBase configuration changes across multiple environments using the OnBase change management process in OnBase 18. This allows administrators to quickly and accurately copy their production system for all of their testing purposes. The newly enhanced import-export experience allows admins to get changes into production fast, meaning less downtime when modifications are needed. What we're looking at now is a standard multi-environment setup. As you can see, we have one main production environment and an additional environment for the testing of any newly developed configuration changes. This will ensure that any new piece of configuration functions properly before promoting it to the production environment. For larger solutions, organizations can have multiple development environments, allowing developers to work independently in separate workspaces. So the challenge here is how time-consuming and repetitive the manning of each of these separate environments can be. So with this new standalone utility of test system creation, which gives you the ability to rapidly create copies of your production environment, this works to resolve that challenge. Also, as some of you are aware, the closer your test and development environments are to accurately reflecting your production system, this will greatly assist in ensuring that changes developed in these lower environments can be more easily migrated into production. Test system creation can also be used to create multiple lower environments as well, so not just a single test environment. So what does test system creation actually do? In order to create an environment that can be used for test and development of your OnBase solution, test system creation does the following. So it's going to copy all of the configured data, that being document types, form templates, workflow lifecycles, WorkView applications, etc. So that being said, it does not copy instance data. So the actual documents and keywords and autofill keyword sets, folders, and so on. So it's also going to copy the disk group structure into a new root directory of your choosing. So same thing here, it does not copy the document data or files and transmit those over to the new disk group structure. It also allows you to set a new install ID within your environment. So it's going to clear environmental configuration values stored in the database. For example, external dataset connection strings or application server URLs. So all that being said, when running test system creation, the administrator can specify one or more custom queries that can be used by test system creation to populate the newly created test environment with document data. These queries will be executed in the source system, and any documents returned this way will be archived into that test environment. So this is extremely helpful when you need those actual documents and keyword values within your lower environments for testing purposes. So this is the exception to those above points about not copying document or instance data. So the other highlight here is that Hyland has reimagined the import and export experience. Previously, there's several locations and tools to import and export various elements within OnBase, such as workflows, WorkView applications, and so on. These have all now been combined into a single experience. Everywhere you can import and export will now have the same experience. So, configuration, OnBase Studio, reporting dashboards, and Unity scheduler. This, in conjunction with the test system creation, now makes your OnBase change management process that much more reliable and simple to manage. So another new product on the Unity platform for OnBase 18 only is the combined viewer. This new viewer presents a combined view of several different capabilities within one screen, with the purpose of aggregating all information about a specific customer, employee, transaction, or case. So Combined Viewer is this new interface to visualize, navigate, and personalize large collections of documents, data, and decisions in one centrally combined interface. This extremely powerful new interface puts everything you need right at your fingertips, from custom queries to workflow to WorkView. All right, so to get us started here, as you can see, Combined Viewer is now a button that exists within the Unity client's upper ribbon menu. And by selecting this, we're shown all the available combined views that we have configured. For this example, everything has been grouped based off of customer accounts. So once selected, we are now within our combined view for the customer account of Vandalay Industries. So there's a lot going on here, so I'm going to go ahead and start to break this down. So on the left-hand side, here are all these available tabs. These can be custom queries, access to individual workflow queues, WorkView filters, quick access to forms, all with visual display or specific information that's related to, in this case, a customer account. And by having this marketing query selected, we can see that the hit list is only displaying documents that meet that query's criteria. So once we select a document, a preview of that document is displayed below. We also have the ability to pop out the view of this document with this pop-out button on the upper ribbon menu, or through right-click functionality. This popped-out display can then be relocated to an additional or secondary monitor and will dynamically update its view as you either arrow or click through available documents. So this is a live viewer. Another really nice feature of this is that once you X out of this now external document viewer, it will automatically dock back to its original location. So the Recent Documents tab is another feature here. And this has the ability to retrieve all the documents that your particular user account has recently viewed. So by selecting this, you'll be presented with each document that you have viewed in the last 30 days. You also have the ability to flag a document at any time, making it easy for reference later. One second here. Okay. All right, yeah, so like I was saying, you have the option to flag a document at any time, so you can mark it for reference at a later time. And by selecting the Flag tab on the left-hand side here, you can view all of the documents you have flagged within this combined view. All right, so you can also specify individual workflow queues that you want access to that relate to these documents. And by selecting the appropriate tab, you'll be presented with the items within that specific workflow queue. And as you can see, the upper ribbon menu here will automatically default to the Task tab, presenting you with all the ad hoc tasks for those items. This is an excellent tool because all the information your end users need in order to, that they need to leverage in order to make this business decision is all contained within this combined viewer. So similar to workflow queues, you can identify specific WorkView filters that you want quick access to. So once selected, the upper ribbon menu will default to the Filters tab, giving you access to all the functionality for that particular WorkView application. For example, when we select the Create button, this gives us the ability to create a new item, task, or object. So I also wanted to cover some of these tasks that are specific only to Combined Viewer. So I've already covered the pop-out document viewer. So there's also these search features. And what's great about this type of search is that it's within the context of this specific combined view. So only documents that meet the parameters of this combined viewer would resolve from these searches. And here we have the ability to import new documents from within the combined viewer as well. Specifically, there is this import center. So this presents you with a familiar document import dialog window, but it's tailored just to the document types that are associated with this particular combined view. So this allows you to import new documents directly into your combined viewer. So speaking of new documents, there's also an available New Documents tab that once selected will present you with any net new documents that have entered this combined view since your user account has opened it. Also, in addition to the document hit list filters that you're already familiar with today, the combined viewer has this master or top level filter set. So these smart filters allow you to filter all items within the combined viewer, which dynamically adjusts the documents that are retrievable and updates the items counts on the available tabs on the left-hand side as well. For solutions that include Autonomy Idle module, that same full text search functionality can be leveraged within this combined view as well. And just like the search buttons, this full text search applies only to the documents within the context of the combined view. Another thing to note is that full text search is also applied after any filters that you may have selected, allowing you to further define the documents in which you would like your full text search applied to. Combined Viewer also has some neat background functionality that's happening here. For example, memorization. So this is where the Combined Viewer will retain any size adjustments that you've made to the column width or column order, even if you completely exit it. Memorization is also applied when reopening a particular combined view, where it will auto-display the last items you were working on. So this incredible ability to set your end users up for success by leveraging this outstanding functionality of OnBase 18's Combined Viewer It's just one of the many reasons that we here at Navient are so excited for this particular release.
Now let's take a look at the improved functionality that OnBase 18 has to offer on the modules and clients that we already know and love. We definitely will not have time today to cover the more than 3,000 enhancements that have been applied to OnBase 18, but we will be briefly covering some of the key features that have been incorporated. First up, let's take a look at the enhancements to the Unity client in OnBase 18. Over 300 defect SCRs have been completed and applied to the Unity client in OnBase 18. New user options are available, allowing users to customize their OnBase experience. An enhanced image viewer has been applied as well. User options to enable or disable toast notifications allow users to control whether or not they see Unity toast notifications to reduce the visual noise. Unity now respects the confirm exit option when closed in service mode, which prevents the nag pop-up from appearing when closing service mode. User option to set a default directory to save files locally. This allows a user to specify a different directory for the send to file action. The enhanced document viewer allows for opening of large physical images as well as large quantities of image documents. Also, if an image fails to render correctly, only that viewer is affected rather than the client process. Large image files, such as scanned blueprints, and in this context, think number of pixels, not file size, as file size on disk is not always the same as an uncompressed file size in memory. Image rendering now has its own dedicated process with almost 2 gigabytes of memory space, with the sole purpose of opening and rendering image files. Previously, memory was shared and fragmented with other Unity processes, and now image rendering has its own block of memory. The web client has received some enhancements as well. The web client has some UX improvements. This includes updated colors, layouts, menus, and how dialogues are displayed. There's also improved performance with groupings and lists, and what were formerly known as threads have been renamed to discussions. A lot more intuitive way to present the collaboration and conversations occurring on documents. The batch index support has also been improved, and in the web client, the send to mail recipient function in both ActiveX and HTML web clients can send email via Gmail, Outlook Web Access, and Outlook 365. This is supported across all supported browsers and operating systems.
In reporting dashboards, there have been several enhancements in regard to the user experience, as well as some new chart options. We'll start with the admin side of reporting dashboards. The biggest headline here is that data from WorkView Case Manager can now be used as a data provider to present reports. This is important for case management solutions and brings a whole new level of visualization tools to the applications built within WorkView Case Manager. This can now all be done without the need to use custom SQL statements. In reporting dashboards, the wizard for copying dashboards has been improved to make the process that much easier, and new formatting options have been added for displaying information on both cards and grids. When we are displaying data on a grid, we now have the ability to choose specific columns to display within a specific report. And the engine powering reporting dashboards now includes 2 all-new report types, a scatter chart and a tree map. Mobile has received several enhancements in OnBase 18. First, there's the ability to authenticate via Touch ID on iOS platforms. Hyland has also added support for authentication via an identity provider for single sign-on to the OnBase apps and mobile devices. For iOS and Android apps, Hyland has added a native app shell for WorkView applications. So instead of having multiple icons for various case manager applications on your mobile device, these can now be presented within one single mobile app. When installing, the user will see all the apps they have access to within OnBase. These mobile apps can also be accessed via the desktop browser for the same experience. Hyland has also added some signature capture on iOS for images and PDF document types. For example, when a customer is opening a new account in your branch, the customer can be handed a tablet or phone and can sign right there on the spot. For healthcare specifically, there have been some additional mobile enhancements. For Epic customers rolling out Epic Haiku and/or Canto, once the user clicks to retrieve content in OnBase, this will automatically switch into an OnBase mobile app to view and interact with that content. Users also now have the ability to flag documents for corrections within mobile applications, and the ability to add notes and to add additional context or contextual information on the go. Hyland has, so as Hyland continues to bring a combined suite of healthcare offerings together, they have integrated the PAX Gear mobile app with the OnBase mobile app. And so this allows you to capture patient images and video from iPhone or iPad, and then content can be then edited and annotated within OnBase.
There are several new enhancements to workflow as well. First one to mention is the ability to utilize Unity forms for workflow interactions. There are several new additional rules and actions to learn about. For example, workflow can inform users that notifications have been sent. There's also additional capabilities to process emails with the rule determining does email have an attachment. OnBase can then take certain actions such as creating an OnBase document from attachment or removing attachments from email, including embedded attachments or small images from signatures such as LinkedIn logos. And a very good addition to the does related item exist rule. You can now dictate which of the related items you want to execute against. So for example, if a document has 10 related documents, you can specify which of these should exist before triggering the action. In the Unity Management Console, easier management of scheduler and timer, as well as some improved tools to assist troubleshooting, have been added. There are several more important workflow enhancements and could easily be a webinar in and of itself. Feel free to reach out to us at the Navient Customer Care Group and definitely take advantage of training.onbase for more information. Now let's cover some of the enhancements for OnBase 18 with WorkView. Within WorkView Case Manager, the ability for reporting dashboards to present information graphically. Users can now expose WorkView filters into GIS, allowing data to be visualized on a map. Additionally, and this is also a very significant enhancement, is that the View Designer has been rewritten in OnBase 18 and integrated into the OnBase Studio. This now has a more intuitive drag-and-drop design experience similar to configuring Unity forms. Also new to OnBase 18 is the Application Creator Accelerator. It's a combination of the word Excel from Microsoft Excel and Accelerator. This is a beautiful new tool which allows admins to use an Excel spreadsheet to create a basic application configuration and then pull into config to finalize, accelerating their application creation time.
And finally, for government users specifically, there have been several user interface enhancements. The first user experience enhancement is within electronic voting capabilities for meeting has been improved. There have been additional various enhancements to the OnBase agenda management. On the iOS Agenda to Go app, individuals can review meeting minutes prior to the meeting, annotate, make notes, and even more, all prior to the meeting on the iOS Agenda to Go app. These enhancements have added essential features to OnBase that were previously only available on the Sire product, ensuring that customers transitioning to OnBase from Sire will have the functionality they need. Additionally, Plan and Review has been updated with several user interface enhancements, as well as new fields that can be added within reporting dashboards. So now that we've covered some of the new features of OnBase 18, and we've highlighted some of the enhanced functionality of OnBase 18, let's move on to some of the integrations. So with the release of OnBase 18, Hyland has incorporated improved browser support. So there's the full support for Microsoft Edge HTML16 and newer. So this brings the widely used modules such as Workflow, WorkView, as well as document knowledge transfer, collaboration, status view to Microsoft Edge. Functionalities such as PDF Pop and Form Pop are designed to be used by a wider audience and are often external to your solution. So these modules are now compatible with Apple Safari, Google Chrome, Microsoft Edge HTML, Internet Explorer, Mozilla Firefox, and so on.
Hyland has also added new integrations in OnBase 18 for SAP's cloud-first platform, S/4HANA. There is also the ability to integrate with SAP Fiori, which is their web and mobile-friendly responsive user interface. This includes the ability to retrieve documents using PDF Pop within the Fiori mobile app. For AutoCAD 2018, the user interface has been updated to match the Unity client, along with improvements to viewing, such as changing the background color, and a markup creation with the ability to allow repeat markups. With the integration of DocuSign, documents can be re-uploaded when the DocuSign envelope is deleted. Lastly, Hyland also added packaged AP automation for Workday, a financial management solution. Adding 64-bit compatibility allows the software to utilize more modern hardware configurations, improving performance by utilizing things such as higher allotments of system memory. For 64-bit compatibility in OnBase 18, the largest news is that the web server is 64-bit only in this version. The app server also has a 64-bit version, and it is preferred, although the 32-bit is still available. And the same thing applies to the OnBase Studio. 64-bit is preferred, especially with the addition of WorkView, and if you have large WorkView applications, although 32-bit versions are still available.
So one of the major reasons to keep your OnBase up to date is to ensure that you are mitigating risk and taking advantage of the latest security patches and enhancements. So let's cover some of the highlights specifically related to security. So the first thing to mention here is goodbye to ODBC and hello to ADO.NET for server and database connections. This allows us to utilize the latest database access technology from Microsoft. There's improved security with ADO.NET. Customers can use their own database logins for connectivity to the database, rather than using HSI or HSINet with the default passwords, or without having to rotate the passwords for those accounts. Also, Hyland's performance team's testing has showed that ADO.NET performs faster than ODBC due to a decrease in round trips to the database. ADO.NET performs significantly faster when there's network latency as well. So Hyland has expanded their identity provider support to the web server, including the POP integrations, as well as the mobile and document composition. The web server has had multiple security enhancements in OnBase 18 as well. Also in Workflow, more granular permissions have been added throughout the workflow process. This bolsters security and allows organizations to ensure that they are only providing access to what is needed and only when it is needed. And again, as earlier we mentioned, the Touch ID support for iOS. So I also wanted to briefly touch on the cumulative nature of enhancements in OnBase. So if you are on an earlier version, remember that the enhancements each year are cumulative. So not only will you gain an incredible amount of new functionality, especially if you're on a version prior to 17, which lacks the new user interface experience, but you're also going to gain the updated support for the latest browsers and other applications you integrate with, as well as the very latest security patches and improvements. All right, so that's going to conclude today's webinar. So we can now take a few moments to answer any kind of like OnBase 18 specific questions you may have. And of course, please feel free to reach out to us at the customer care group at any time for any additional information as well. So I'm just going to maximize. Should be able to pop this out. All right.
Just scrolling up to the top of the questions here, and we'll start from the top and work our way down.
Having troubles popping out the questions box. I just did this. All right. So you mentioned the web server and app server are now 64-bit as well. Oh, that didn't do it. All right. So web server 64-bit. Is the OnBase client also 64-bit? Yeah. So we go ahead and take these down, and then so that was William Morgan. All right, Terry, you're asking about the image forms and whether or not they need, it's a separate module that need to be purchased, and whether the anticipated costs, and at CCG, I don't ever look at like costs and things of that nature. And so, it is definitely a separate module that would need to be incorporated, but I'm not sure of the cost, but we can definitely have someone reach out to you in that regard. Okay, so we are in the process of going from Sire to OnBase 17 with our go live date in September. Is it better to go right to 18 instead? So, all right. So Alan, I'll go ahead and reach out to you directly in that regard. Just try to be a little more vague on the OnBase 18 questions. Okay. Yep, another question on additional cost for the image form functionality. Is the Unity client required? So it definitely is for image forms and obviously Unity forms and things of that nature. So another question is, image form and additional license. It's a popular question here. Yes, and so that's an excellent question. So does the combined viewer, respect security rights and things of that nature? And yes, it absolutely does. So user group permissions and the availability to view those keywords, as well as any security keywords that may have been applied at document type or keyword type levels, will still be respected within combined viewer.
So just so you guys know, if we don't get your question on this webinar, we will be reaching out to you directly as best as we can with the answers to your questions. We're not ignoring them. We have to be selective of the ones that we do so that we can give you the correct information.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, all right. So did you say that the files in the disk groups are not copied to the new test system? And correct. So with test system creation, it will create all those new disk group locations in a directory of your choosing, but it will not actually copy any of those image files themselves. However, that being said, you can choose specific custom queries to be executed within your production environment. And then the results of those queries will archive those images and actually bring those images in and that keyword data. So images to the disk group and keyword data to the database. All right. Okay. So like Chuck mentioned, we'll go ahead and take notes of these, and we'll go ahead and reach back out to you guys on an individual basis on some of these other questions. Because also I did want to highlight so the current versions that are available out there. And so the next webinar is what is workflow? And this is August 15th. And here you can see a brief description of this next webinar. And really the big news here is the next event, and that's the Navient Summit. And I don't know if any of you have attended a summit in the past, but they were absolutely fantastic. I thoroughly enjoy going there and having that opportunity to have those face-to-face interactions with all of you. So the next event is Monday and Tuesday, October 15th and 16th at the Monona Terrace right here in Madison. And once again, thank you all so much for coming today. I was really excited to talk to you about OnBase 18.
Thank you much, guys. Have a good one, and we'll talk to you when we talk to you.
Yep, take care. Feel free to reach out anytime.